All right, we're back for another edition of, I don't even know what we call our show, but it's going to be a little bit recruiting and it's going to be a little bit of football. And we're even going to talk about a little bit of women's basketball, maybe some men's too today. But we're going to start off with the Iowa game recruiting visitor list, which is another impressive list. And what makes it impressive is that USC's kind of going all out for the UCLA game with recruiting. So they didn't really even put a tremendously huge amount of effort to get guys out for this game, but there's 16, 15 or 16 of the verbal commits from the class of 2026 that'll be there, including Talanoa Ely is coming out. This is his first time back this year. Um, and he's also going to be attending the women's basketball game against South Carolina after that game. So he is all in with his USC experience already. He will be arriving, though, in about a month and a half and enrolling at USC. So he's just kind of getting ready for his next chapter of his life. Jamian Winfield's coming in from Texas. A lot of buzz with Texas and Texas A&M coming after him hard. Man, I'll tell you what, I would come after him hard too after seeing him play. That's a big time player right there. Also, Cannon Smith from Colorado, I think one of the more underrated players in this class, offensive lineman from Baylor Christian. He's also part of the group of guys from Colorado that grew up playing youth football together, and Brett Kolodziej and Mark Bowman. And then we got Sean Alston coming in from Harvey High School, Elbert Hill from Akron, Ohio. Maybe those guys will enjoy getting out of the colder weather that they're experiencing now in that part of the country. But then there's a couple of really talented top 2027 wide receiver targets. And Quentin Hale from right down the street at Cathedral High School. For those of you who don't know, it's right near Dodger Stadium. If you've ever driven into the parking lot of Dodger Stadium, chances are you passed Cathedral High School. Then you got Damani Warren from Arborview High School in Las Vegas. This is a bigger receiver. This is a guy that I was talking to about a year ago, and he was really, had USC as a school of interest, said he was going to visit, and just the months just kept going by where he did not make it to campus. I think there was some family stuff going on with him where he didn't really visit many schools. He will be at USC along with USC's one of their top linebacker targets, Caden Henderson from Jesuit High School in Tampa, Florida. And then 2028 got Phoenix Evans from Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey coming out, 2028 DB. And the top DB, one of the top DBs for the class of 2028 in Southern California is Karan Prime Williams from Santa Margarita High School. And I need to mention my guy, Donovan Warren, quarterback class of 2028 from Bel Air, Texas. This is a guy that's really high on USC, and we'll see if anything ever develops with him. He is a very talented quarterback, though. So it's going to be an impressive group of recruits. We will have updates on Saturday live. We'll have stuff after. We'll have stuff on Sunday. And I'll be going to a football game this weekend. I'm not sure if it's going to be Mater Day yet or if it's going to be Sierra Canyon and Santa Margarita. That's the game that I will go to if it's not raining. Rain kind of changes everything for me. I'm a little soft when it comes to weather. So anyway, lots to look forward to this weekend with the Iowa Hawkeyes coming into town. And we will get to the Iowa game here in a second. But Crash, just talk about what you saw from USC against Northwestern. That kind of gives you hope that they can finish this season out strong.
Well, Scott, I think we just saw with this game a lot of the kind of USC's top players, including Jade Mayava, Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane, look like the versions of themselves that fans that we've been used to seeing, that we expect to see. And obviously, yes, they have been, playing tougher competition for sure, especially since, they went on the road to Illinois, then faced Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska. So even though obviously there's numbers went down, which was going to always be inevitable, when you face better competition, that just naturally happens. Those games get tougher to win because of the opposing talent you're facing. What impressed me about this Northwestern game was, yeah, there were a couple mistakes. I mean, Mayava had that one interception, but he really did a great job, I thought, covering himself and tackling the guy who almost scored a touchdown, got to fumble it through the end zone to give USC back the ball, force a touchback and give USC back the ball. But then also I was really impressed how just Lane and Lemon looked and just really how the whole team looked. And then obviously the other play that there's been a lot of conversation about that USC has even kind of gone all out, just really making a joke on with their coffee video yesterday was Sam Heward wearing number 80 and going in for the fake punt for Sam Johnson. So that
Yes.
was definitely a play that's, been, super been super, obviously great to that was super cool to see, even though now the Big Ten saying it illegal. And I'm not sure how David Braun, if David Braun actually knew it was or was trying to say, oh, it should have been a penalty, but you do have to respect that he took the diplomatic approach with it. But at the same time, obviously it was cool to see, but people are now wondering, why did you use it against Northwestern? Why aren't you saving it for this week against Iowa potentially, or the following week against Oregon? So while I like the play, there's definitely, and I'm not disagreeing with their use of it, and I think it was a smart play, it's going to be harder to use it. And who knows? Could the NCAA come in and, close that loophole like they did when Dan Lanning put 12 men on the field against Ohio State last year before Saturday's games kick off? So I'm just wondering, would you have been better off maybe using it for, a game with higher stakes, bigger implications?
Yeah. Well, there's always that argument to be made with a play like that, especially when it works. Whether you can use it later, you could argue that that was the perfect time to use it because certainly didn't want to start losing momentum against Northwestern. Arguments both way, but I mean either way, I just look at that play from a different perspective. Great call, great execution. But what I love is it's just more, yeah, another example of USC being far more aggressive this year than they have in the past years. And we're talking about USC is far more aggressive right now with recruiting. We're far more aggressive with what goes on the football field. You see it with Lincoln Riley going for it on fourth down this year. His approach is far different than it has been in years past. And you're also seeing it in the way they practice. USC is never, as far as I know, they never went and had full practices on a Sunday after a Saturday football game, which is something they've been doing this year. I don't even know if they did it last year. And they're also USC's approach is also a lot different to the way that they practice leading up to the games as well. So, and there's other teams that also are even maybe even a little more aggressive than USC. But places like Georgia have full padded walkthroughs before their football games on Saturdays. But anyway, I just like that USC is being aggressive, and that's kind of my biggest takeaway on that. But yeah, wouldn't that have been a great play to use it at a place like Oregon if you're down, it's late in the fourth quarter and the game's tied, and the Oregon fans, which they always are going nuts. It's loud, it's crazy, energetic, and then USC pulls that play off. Yes, I can't disagree that that would have been a great time to use that call. But what did you think of the defensive performances, especially from the defensive backs? Because it really was nice to see Braylon Conley come back in and have a solid performance.
Absolutely. I think you look at the defense, that first half, especially that first quarter, was a little worrisome where it was like, oh, great, here we go again. Is this going to be a tough game? Especially with kind of the defensive line showing some vulnerabilities, even the linebackers too. Also, like that's been an area I've talked a lot about on the Voice of College Football show I'm on twice a week as well. So we've talked a lot about there. Like we've been wondering, is Rob Ryan like if something is going to change on this coaching staff? Probably won't be at the top, but if there is going to be some change, would Rob Bryan be the most likely coach to go this offseason? And it seems like, especially how the linebackers have been performing, even with Eric Gentry back now full time this year, that would happen. But I was still just impressed, especially after kind of that first half, how they just really just completely just shut down Northwestern's offense and just made it really comfortable, especially in that second half, and just the Wildcats really couldn't get anything going. So I was just really impressed with just how the defense stepped up and then just, was able to limit the Wildcats to under 20 points.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of positives to take away from the game. It's getting difficult for USC with the running back situation. It's like every time that King Miller touches the ball, and he comes off with a limp, you're holding your breath. And they have activated James Johnson to go from playing DB to running back. So yeah, and they're going to need him this week too. So it's gonna be another challenging week for USC from that perspective. But what I like to see is, like you mentioned earlier, Jacoby Lane was making the catches that he was not making in the past few weeks. He had good games, had a lot of catches against Notre Dame, but there were some key passes against Notre Dame, including a touchdown pass that he did not grab, which was unusual for him. So heading into Iowa, we pretty much know what we're getting from the Iowa Hawkeyes. And most of us had Saturday off because USC played on Friday night against Northwestern. So we got to watch a lot of football. I did anyway. And I watched that Iowa Oregon game, and it was a physical battle. But Oregon was able to kind of run right through the Iowa Hawkeyes, which was kind of surprising. I'm not sure USC has the ability to do that. But what are your thoughts with the running game coming up here?
Well, I think you just look at Iowa, and the big thing that comes to mind, Scott, is they are known for their defense. That is what Kirk Ferentz has built his name and reputation on as the head coach of the Hawkeyes over his almost is it 25 year or like 25 years, I think it is.
It's got to
Something
be
like
at least that.
yeah, something like that. I just don't know the exact numbers, so I don't want to just, say it just
Yep.
outright, but around 25 years leading the Hawkeyes. He's the all-time Big Ten wins leader. And just when you look at a guy like that who's just done that, it's like obviously, and even what they've done this year is really impressive. So I think just with that, it's really going to be USC really needs to have their options open. I like the idea of being aggressive with the run game, but also taking advantage of utilizing your strong, lethal receivers that you have in Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lanes, even Tanook Hines in recent weeks has impressed too, ever since Notre
Yeah.
Dame. When I'm not saying you can't really, I'm not trying to say he should be utilized on the level of Lane and Lemon. Like, if it's crunch time, like you need a clutch score. If I'm Jade Mayava, I want to get the ball to Lane or Lemon. But I think Tanook Hines is a good alternate option that keeps the defense on their toes as well. But
Sure.
also, yeah. And I think really, I mean, you talk about just how Iowa looked against Oregon. I mean, I'm not trying to obviously excuse anything, but obviously going on the road and winning is really impressive no matter where it is, especially in a place like Iowa too, where they were really into it. And then you had the rain. So it's really a tough game for the Ducks. Obviously, Dante Moore able to get them down the field. So USC does have the home advantage where they've been great this year, but I think it's really going to be down to the last possession, especially with just how physical and suffocating this Hawkeyes defense is.
Yeah. It's one of those games where ideally, USC would get off to a faster start defensively than they have definitely kind of settled into games, as the way Lincoln Riley put it. I do like the fact that somebody like Carlin Jones continues to trend for getting more reps. He had 12 against Northwestern. I asked Lincoln Riley about him. He's a redshirt freshman. Who's had nagging injuries since he got to USC, and I think if they can add to his 12 reps and get him around 20. I think somebody like him, just the way that he has the ability to make some plays, which kind of separates him from some of the other guys. But he's young still, and those guys, it's hard for coaches to trust them as much as some of the older guys. But looking forward to just kind of seeing the USC offense against this Iowa defense for sure, because they have a pretty solid secondary as well at Iowa. So, but I think ultimately, I think it comes down to USC is just going to have the ability to score too many points for Iowa. To be honest with you, I think if this game is not a close game, it definitely favors USC because Iowa's ability to score points. Iowa's going to be that team that's going to go first down, second down, third down, and maybe even go for it on fourth down. It's going to take a lot of plays to score for Iowa, obviously, but that takes time off the clock. So, yeah, I'm looking. I'm not really big on making predictions, but I could see this game being somewhere in like the 28-17 type range. So that's kind of like where I stand with the USC Iowa game. How about yourself? What do you think? What do you think on a score prediction?
I think it's going to be a little bit close. I'd give more 24-20. And one scenario that I think you talked about, just how Iowa scores that I got presented with on Tuesday night was, is USC better off allowing Iowa to score a few more points, but getting a little bit more, but they use less clock to do it, or score less, but then eat up more clock. And I think if it's, 6 points, like going from 17 to 23, I think, well, this is a scenario I got presented. I think you take the extra point, you give them the extra points, but then you give Jade Mayafa and the offense a bit more time. Obviously, any more than that, and then it gets too uncomfortable with the points. But I think for that just shows just how kind of Iowa plays. And I think really one thing I did want to mention that I heard Lincoln Riley say on Trojans Live on Monday was he talked about, and I think this kind of ties into what you're talking about, the kind of an impressive list of recruits they got coming this weekend, Scott. It's just like, if you're at USC, if you care at all about, he said something like, if you care at all about USC football, then you're getting yourself to that game. And I think it just shows kind of how much it's like, maybe they knew their recruiting list and everything that was coming, but I think it just shows how important Riley sees this game for the, not just to get the win today, but also just for the remaining trajectory of the season, and in like, especially heading into next year when that 2026 recruiting class gets to campus.
Yeah, that's just it's a huge game. Just it would be a huge game if they were playing Maryland this time of year. You control your own destiny into the playoffs right now, and yeah, so they can pull off a win this week, and they go up to Eugene where they'll probably be a touchdown underdog. That's going to be a brutal game, tough game. It's a tough game for anybody to go there and win football games. But yeah, this could finish as a stronger season than I anticipated. I'm not sure that maybe we anticipated some of the injuries that USC has had to withstand this season. It's been a lot when you're talking about three projected starters in the secondary. Your first your starting running back and your backup, and now you're down to King Miller. And being down to King Miller, what's crazy about the USC running back room is this guy is probably good enough to start on 14 to 16 of the teams in the Big Ten, and it's kind of crazy that he is that good. You got running backs at certain schools that, granted, I mean, they speak for themselves. But to think that this guy, for half of the teams, let's say in the Big Ten, he could be the starting running back, that's just astonishing to me. Says a lot
Especially
about him.
especially when you consider the fact that he and his brother, who's an offensive lineman, are both still walk-ons for the time being. I mean,
Yeah.
they definitely, I mean, Kalen Miller's brothers, I think, done a great job when he's gotten reps with the O-line in game. So I think I really would be I'm really excited when they inevitably both, or hopefully inevitably both give them scholarships and we get to see those great hype up videos. Like I always love seeing those videos. Like the one they did for Killian O'Connor last year was super great. It's someone who's gotten to talk with Killian before and like for a class project and just see
Hmm.
what he went through to get to where he is and then beating out Gianri Reed. Like super happy for that guy, especially just everything he put in and just betting on himself and wanting to be a USC Trojan.
Hey, there's been some pretty impressive walk-ons at USC over the years. We always seem to, those of us that are old and been around a while through the Pete Carroll years. Clay Matthews showed up at USC as a 180-pound walk-on safety, and now he's looking to be an NFL Hall of Famer here in sometime in the future. So yeah, these kind of stories to me. Even with recruiting, I get to cover a lot of these high-profile 4 and 5 star recruits. But I love it when these guys come around and they really haven't, nobody's really paid attention to them, and it's late in the recruiting process, and they finally get an offer from a school that like they really wanted to get one from. Those are the stories I like. The guys that maybe don't get all the attention and just kind of become a great story because of their hard work and perseverance. King and Kalen Miller are those examples, and it's just those stories are the best.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's one thing I've really admired about Lincoln Riley. He's not afraid to give walk-ons like first just a chance to be on the team and become part of the football family, part of the program, and then obviously get their opportunities to get reps and then eventually earn a scholarship and hell even get the opportunities to start. So it's something I really do admire about Lincoln Riley, but obviously goes back way further too, like you said, going back to the Pete Carroll days and probably even further, I'd imagine.
Yep. All right, last thing I'm going to mention, and I forgot to early in this recording, is that there's been several predictions for one of the guys. Like there was one guy on the West Coast in the class of 2027 recruiting class that it was like is the guy I would choose. It's Honor Faalave Johnson from Cathedral High School and actually is he from Cathedral? Anyway, from San Diego. Um, and this was a guy that probably in July, it looked like he was probably going to end up at Oregon or an SEC school. And he came for a visit for the Michigan game, got together with Chad Bowden. They did a little NIL talk. And, there's 3 predictions in now for USC for him. And if he had an announcement date or there was a time frame for announcing a commitment, I would put one in myself. So, that was a significant development this week and something worth mentioning. So anyway, looking forward to seeing everybody at the Coliseum and reporting about this Iowa game and we'll do it in a less than a week and talk about some of the recruits that were at the game. I'm sure there's going to be plenty to talk about on that perspective as well. Just talk about this USC women's basketball team and what that North Carolina State victory meant heading into this huge matchup with South Carolina.
Yeah, it's the Real SC series. One thing I will mention, former USC assistant coach Wendell Farrow is now on the South Carolina staff, so I'm excited to see him. Obviously, wish him nothing but the best. Can't even blame him. Just when you look at just what South Carolina has done there, you can't blame him at all for wanting to work under Don Staley. But with this USC team, obviously, I haven't gotten to go to a game yet, so this will be my first game this year. They beat New Mexico State at home, but then fly across the country to Charlotte and it's basically, and it's more, and it's really just, obviously much more of a home game for the Wolfpack because of it being in North Carolina. So really just, USC kind of being behind most of that game. They were down, I think, 8 going into the fourth quarter, and then they just really kick it up. And that, what impressed me about this game is that they won it without Juju Watkins, who will be out the entire year after tearing her ACL. And what just that shows is just how good like Jazzy Davidson has proven to be. Obviously, everyone said, "Oh yeah, she's gonna be great," but the fact she was able to make the game-winning layup on that inbounds play with 10 seconds left, or under 10 seconds left when she scored, shows just how good this team is. And especially one thing that hasn't dropped off that I really saw in that NC State game that impressed me was the level of defense, which is what associate head coach Beth Burns, I think, has really kind of prided herself on and has really, I think when she came in, it sounded like she just wants to like really just focus on the defense. And I think she's done a terrific job doing that, especially when you look at the returners too, with like Malia Samuels and Kendi Smith, who are both really aggressive on defense. It just showed that this team's defense hasn't stopped, and then they still have the scores to really keep pace and really do that. Especially when you got someone like London Jones coming across town from UCLA, then Davidson, who's really is already turning into a star with USC.
Yeah. Hey, Lindsay's a hell of a coach.
Absolutely. I
I
mean,
know it's just we don't maybe talk about that enough. We talk about the women that she brings in and how good they are, but man, adding Lindsay Gottlieb to the women's basketball program, you know, I just remember the energy that she brought, or the vibe that she brought to the program day one, and it's all kind of playing out in the way that they envisioned. And just did Jazzy have like 22, 24 points in this game?
something like that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Then you talk about Lindsay Scott, and one thing I remember, I think from what I was reading, like what she told Rhea Marshall and Clarice Akunwafo, who have both since graduated and aren't with the program anymore, who were committed to the program before Mark Track retired and Gottlieb came in, and she convinced them to stay. She
yeah.
said she already managed to say like we're going to be a championship caliber program, and I think they were looking at each other like this woman's crazy or something
Yeah.
like that. But she absolutely called it. And like the fact that, why I like them is like they obviously they're both really talented players, but they also really just helped set the foundation. They were there through those tough couple first years and then really helped elevate the program in year 3 and 4. So
Yeah.
obviously I think just the presence and leadership that they had is definitely also missed, but I'm still obviously confident in, the returning players you got and like players like Samuel and Smith who now are in their third and second years respectively.
Yeah. I don't want to look ahead because the season just started, but as you and I were talking about, just the thought of Jazzy and Juju, imagine the marketing possibilities with that as well. Next season is just like, wow. I mean, that's going to be like Showtime Lakers stuff when those two are on the court at the same time. So, all right. Well, anyway, I'll see you crash on Saturday at the Coliseum, and we'll see you guys when we get back on here. So, fight on.
Right on.